You try to date outside your type because they say when you date outside your type, you found your husband. But that is not always the case. Let me get into it. So let me tell y'all how I went on a date and found out he was a Uber driver. So I met this man on Instagram, right? So I met him. We started chit-chatting in DM, typical conversation. So then I see my friend is following him. So, of course, I send his Instagram to my homegirl. And I'm like, sis, do you know him? And she was like, I'm not quite sure. He might have been my Uber driver. And I'm like, huh? So then I'm like, you sure? Because in my head, I'm like, why would you follow your Uber driver? And then she came back and was like, actually, I don't know. I'm not sure. I met a lot of people this weekend, so it's a possibility he's not my Uber driver. So I'm like, okay, cool. And of course, I didn't think none of it because I'm like, why would you be following your Uber driver? So, yeah. So then we go on a date. We vibing, y'all. I mean, this is the first guy I've actually went on a date with since I moved to Atlanta. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm really vibing with him. I got a connection with him. I'm interested in going on another date. So I asked him, what do you do? He says he's a serial entrepreneur. So I'm like, okay, but what do you do? So then he tells me that he had to start a business with his friend, and they track the wealth of black people. So I'm like, okay, that didn't sound like any money for real. So I'm like, okay, so what else do you do? So then he starts to tell me what he used to do, how he used to own a dispensary and used to. And I said, okay, but what do you do now? Men, stop telling us what you used to do. If you ain't got it now, we don't care. We don't care. So then he tells me that's it. So then I look at him and I say, you drive Uber? And I could tell it like really effed him up because he was not expecting that. Because of course you a serial entrepreneur, but you did not name that you drive Uber. So he was like, yeah, sometimes. Now, I know y'all gonna drag me in the comments and I don't give up. But y'all, I'm not dating no Uber driver. And let's not forget, he is 48. Think on that. Now, I'm 33. I'm not dating a 48-year-old Uber driver. Like, I'm just not doing it. Like, we date up older men because they're more established, they're more settled. No, I'm not building with no man that's 48. You're basically 50. So we go to the next spot, and I had already said yes before I found out I was an Uber driver. So, of course, like, my whole demeanor is totally different at the second spot. And I'm not really saying anything. I'm really ready to go home, baby. He was doing all the talking. Then he brought it up again, was like, have we met before? Like, how you know I drove Uber? And I'm just like, oh, I just know. So at that point, I'm no longer interested, but, it is what it is. So another time he tries to take me out I think that a few days later, and I'm not the person to ghost people because I don't like when people try to ghost me. I've been ghosted twice, and it's not a good feeling. So I basically tell him while we on the phone, I was like, we was vibing, we was cooling, and, we had a good date, but I ain't gonna lie. When you told me you was the Uber driver, it really effed me up. It did. And I told him it effed me up. And, I'm used to dating older men that got their stuff together, that's more established, somebody I can learn from. And I said, that just took me off guard. And he was very cool about it. He said he understood, and he understood. And then, of course, he went into the whole thing trying to explain himself and all this other stuff. But in the end, he understood. Yeah.
So, I'm going to start this off by saying, hey, everybody has a preference. If that's her preference, where she's looking for a man, especially if she's dating a much older man, to be established making money, hey, that's her preference. But at the end of the day, you dated him for a reason. You knew ahead of time, I'm assuming based off what she was saying, that he was an Uber driver, but you still elected to go with him just to find out. Everything else was fine. It's just the fact that he was an Uber driver, and you didn't want to deal with that. Now, this is Atlanta, and I just did a quick Google, and it's showing that the average salary of an Uber driver in Atlanta is $40,000, right? And he's a gig type of dude. He's a gig hustler. That may be one of them. And it seems like he didn't get to finish saying, you said he tried to explain himself, but whatever. You can actually make money as long as it's paying the bills. It's always something there. Now, I understand you want him to be, you looking for this incredible dude to have some type of retirement plan in place at 48, but sometimes it just doesn't happen like that. Sometimes people have to take up gigs. Sometimes people lose their jobs. Entrepreneurs end up falling off. Things do happen. And sometimes everything isn't in place and you're like, well, why is he dating? Well, evidently he has enough money to take you out. Me personally, I was just driving Uber, and even being a successful YouTuber, quote unquote, it's not beneath me to drive Uber now, Uber or Lyft. I was just doing that last year for supplemental income. It wasn't a full-time thing I was doing, but I was doing it to generate additional income. An additional $100 was like my goal for the day, which I could do in a few hours, 100 or 200, 100 to 200. That was my goal, right? But I don't see anything wrong with it. And he was cool about it. I'll be cool about it too. Hey, if you want to do something like that because you feel like I'm not good enough as far as me working for Uber or me driving for Uber, so be it. There's plenty of other women who will rock with you, bro. Just because you have an average or you're a gig driver. There's a lot of people making bank doing Uber, doing all these other gig apps, DoorDash and stuff like that, which it sounds crazy, but there are people really like killing it out there on a lot of these apps. Handyman, all this, it's especially in a metropolitan city like Atlanta, you can have nonstop work going and do that full time. This gig stuff isn't going anywhere unless it just becomes the Jetsons where everything becomes automated. But guys, we're running into a lot of this more and more. We're seeing a lot of this online where women are just like, no, either he needs to be homeless. He needs to be homeless, or he needs to be some baller out there. Homeless, scammer, or baller. You can't be an average dude and make it with some women. As much as women complain about men and things like that, you have women saying stuff like this. I just can't do it. You should be established. I'm 33. You're 48. If I'm going to date a 48-year-old man. But you'll date a homeless 20-something-year-old or a homeless 30-something-year-old, all right? You can't make this stuff up, guys. You cannot make this stuff up. Anyway, guys, have you guys ever encountered a situation like this? Comment below. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Much blessings and abundance. Stick around for the next videos. It's going to pop up on the screen below. That's where I'm going to see you guys at. It's your favorite everything. This is Wisdom. I'm the best. Let's run it up to 1 million. Quit playing with me. Peace.
Yeah. 50 Cent. 50. Part 2. Bring it back. Yeah. Can't forget Tony. 50. UK.